Okay, I'm back. After looking into the actual issue, I noticed that I did one thing incredibly wrong. Inside, if we go back to the source code where we were before, inside of load data, well, load battle data, anything that is loaded into the editor, anything that you actually want to be more secure, that information is supposed to be loaded from, or any data that can actually change, that needs to be loaded from the actual source, since that is the origin of all data, all the immediate changes that you may make should be loaded from the source. So if it is something that's queried from the editor, it should be brought in from the source. I had it in the actual current database, but the only thing that should ever be queried from the current database is anything that's used actively and live um, inside the gameplay side of things. So checking to see if a chest is open or not, or checking to see if you know our player information is saved, our current HP values and things like that, our starting actor information. All of that should be read from the current database. And anything that's in the current database is not actually stored. How can I say this? I'm saying this wrong. Anything that is in the source database is not copied to the current database until we actually create a new game. So if there's anything that you need to tweak or anything like that to test out things, if it's done to the source database, you have to make sure that you create a new game to get that copied over. But loading information, adding new player, adding new actors, adding new monsters and things like that, that should be in the source. And when you actually load that information into the editor, it should be getting that from the source. And I had it set as a current, which is incorrect because we have not done anything in the current database to where we can actually get access to that information. So that was one of the issues that I had, and that's fixed now. So now if we switch back to here, we should be able to query our database, get the data table, select our monster that we want, and bake that information. Once that information is baked, we have a array list that I know cannot be garbage collected and is actually protected by the U property stance, even though the data table is as well, but then that's a nested smart object that Epic already controls. So that why I wanted to move it to, because of that, I wanted to move it to a variable that I know that is secure, that's blocked by garbage collector with the U property. So I know that when I start my level, my data is actually here for the monster information. One thing I want to also show is this monster list. You can actually load in different different monster types and bake that to the list. So you can have monster type 1 in the loaded list and monster type 2 in the other loaded list. And this will actually load all the information that you can come in here and preview about the character's class, things like that, their item drop percentages and things, and all of all of those settings. Um, you can also, in the monster spawner, we can force the number of monsters that's going to come out. So we can say there at least needs to be 5 monsters that are spawned from here up to 10. We can change their patrol radius, well, their spawn radius, which I'm going to make about 10,000. You can set their respawn time. So after you kill a monster, how long will that instance of the monster be gone until it is brought back? And you can also change the level, and you can just force the level to be anything from a range. But if you set it to 0, then it's not going to try to randomize the level of the monster that spawned. This also gives you the ability to place monsters in certain areas that are familiar but are stronger, And since they're classes, you can actually have them. You can have the monsters learn skills and things like that at different level ranges to actually make that monster seem like it's progressing in skill and it's progressing in level, just like the player would with learning new skills and abilities as you get to this given level of a monster level. In my released example of the demo, the fire sprite at level 1 does not have fire kiss. At level 2, they get fire kiss, and then after that, level 2 and on, they can use that move. So that gives the ability to take a initial monster at a low level and actually have some kind of progression for that monster without having to make, a level 5, a level 3, or a level 47 of that monster type. But even with the actor data, if you wanted the monster to have a different skin color or things like that based on the level, you can put that kind of information inside of the actor data and actually access it that way to be able to have more logic and design to your actual monster when you're creating an initial design for your monster type. Like I said before, I try to make things at least as flexible as possible to make things make sense and to give you the ability to do whatever you want. I mean, you could even have all the spears. You can have them change and automatically force the monsters in that area to be always to be a higher level than your party's average level. So that way the monsters in all the maps scale based on your level. So the monsters are always harder than you. There'll never be any weaker monsters because they scale as you scale. And if that happens, then you can actually have the monsters progress in level, progress in skills when you come back to an old area, and they will be ready to challenge you with whatever might they have in their arsenal. But I digress. So we have our nav mesh here. We have our monster spawn here. And like I said before, same thing with the NPCs. The monsters use their own nav mesh creation, so that way you can put them anywhere without having to create nav mesh across this entire large area, and they can just wander within their radius of their nav mesh. Now, by default, the nav mesh is about 8,000. So if you have a wandering radius for your actual monster, you would not want to set it higher than its actual nav mesh creation, because then it has a possibility of randomly selecting a point outside of its nav mesh, not know what to do with it. It won't break anything. It will just cause a timeout for that location because it can't get to that location. So it's going to automatically detect that, hey, I must be stuck because I'm not moving to the location that I randomly picked. So it's going to time out after about 2 or 3 seconds, reset back to to pick another random point, and then find that point and then move to that point. But it's just something to note that don't do that, pretty much. Always keep your wander radius under your actual nav mesh generation radius. So if I play this, I actually think I'm getting an error because I added a new monster to the database, but I have not started a new level. Well, I have not started a new game to actually port that information over, which I'm doing now. So we're going to save our settings from here. And now we're going to hit play on our start menu. We're going to go into a new game. Almost seems like our persistent level information is not loading whatsoever. Okay, so we have our spawn spear. Where is my starting location? That would be an issue. Did I delete it? Here's the waypoint, but it is under the ground, and that is why I'm not loading. The waypoint has to be above the ground, so it knows that the actual level stream information has actually came in. If your waypoint is under the ground, it's doing a downwards check to make sure that there is something for the player to actually land on before it fades the screen in. If for some reason that it cannot detect the ground, or if your level hasn't loaded, then it's going to perpetually hold the player and not allow the player to load, because all the player is going to do is just fall through the earth into nothingness and probably hit that little kill zone thing that we were playing with earlier. So make sure this is on the ground. I'm going to save. This probably fell through the ground while I was doing terrain changes the other time, and since everything crashed out, I never saved that information, so the spawn point went back under the ground. So now I've already created a new game. That's where we got stuck trying to load under the ground. So now I can load this in. It should be able to detect the floor, and here I am. It's not necessarily a bug. It's just things to know that could cause you problems. So the spawn spear should be here. It has a very, very low range of cutoff for it. And as you see, when I leave the area, just if I can go over here, go back, there are no monsters loaded because my detection radius for the actual player is pretty small. Normally I set it to about 30,000, but this is set to 10,000, so I can actually get pretty close to it, and I'll actually be able to witness the monsters popping in. Normally at 30,000, when they actually pop in, they're too small on the screen to see, so you'll never, the player, the end player, the end user, the player, the person playing your game won't be able to see the monsters actually loading in, because they'll already be fully loaded in by the time they become big enough for you to actually be able to see. So now we have the monster information. We have their detection on screen. They're actually within battle radius because my character switched from normal attack right here to being close enough for the auto attack detection to be able to kick in and actually equip our weapon from our sheath. And she's dead. And I said on average, anywhere between, the damage would be anywhere between 5 hits, I believe, on a 5-hit average to kill. I think when we did the simulation, which that keeps the information accurate because you can actually transfer the simulated battle calculations from the actual database manager to the actual code to make sure that your simulated calculations from there actually carry over properly. And she actually has, oh, I died. Okay. I don't think I have a continue point. Yes, I do. I do have a continue point. The quit points or continue points are actually saved every time you go into a new map, including when you save a new game, well, create a new game. So your initial point will be your actual quick save, and anytime you zone into another map, that will become your quick save. So if I spawn the monster back, by default, these characters originally have a death move, of which I didn't add any of their actual special abilities into the database, which are their Fire Kiss and their actual death move, which causes them to explode. So right now, the only thing that they have the ability to do is to actually physically hit. Oh, she's dead. So let's see. If you have no death animation or no death state for your actual character, they will just sit there dead until their kill timer expires. And once that happens, it's going to come in and clean up the actor. But I have about 2 minutes left. So I should be able to show that the only thing that this character will be able to do is actually hit. And she's hitting me pretty hard. And I'm being chased by 2, and I'm probably going to die again. Ah, good. Got her before she got me. That's how it should be. That is interesting. I've never seen that happen before. But oh, it's probably because okay, I think I know why that happened. Because I have no death animation, and usually the death animation removes the on-screen sprite, which they didn't go through the death animation, so there's no reason to handle that. But by default, you should have some kind of handling for their death, instead of letting the backup error code handle the cleaning up of the object, which it shouldn't actually go through that state anyway. But we can actually, in the next part, go in and add the monster abilities that give them ability to spit fire and to actually do their death kill animation, which causes them to explode and then clean up themselves. So let's do that in the next video.